Welcome everyone. So glad to see you guys tonight. We'll probably have some stragglers coming in, finding parking and whatnot. My name's Kate. I'm delighted to introduce my dear friend, Justin Van Pelt. Many of you know him. For those of you that don't, Justin is a U.S. Navy veteran. He is also certified and licensed through California Institute of Integral Studies as a psychedelic therapist. He's Reiki 1 and 2 certified as well. He has a Bachelor in Science of Nursing, and he's a registered nurse, and he is studying Transformative Nurse Coaching. And we are very excited to have him here tonight. He's very loved in our community, and glad you can all join us. Without further ado,
So, before we begin, let's just take a second here and drop in. Close our eyes, take a deep breath. I just want to take a moment, extend a moment of gratitude for Kate for organizing all of this and all the different meetings that we do in the Sierra Psychedelic Society that we are all benefiting from, and Rachel in the studio for hosting us here, and yourselves for making it here today and all the things that had to align for tonight to happen. So thank you. So this presentation is a culmination of a few questions that I have had my entire life, and maybe you have had them as well. These are, what are we? In terms of just the human form, what are we? What is this place in terms of this realm, what people are calling reality? Is there anything outside of this reality, before it or after it, an alternate dimension of any kind? Is there a reality or alternate dimension outside of this one? Or if there is one, why are we not aware of it? Are the mystics of the ages and the scientists both looking at and talking about the same thing from different angles? So tonight I do not intend to answer any of these questions with any certainty. I have some guesses, and I'm hoping to inspire some curiosity into some possibilities. So let's begin. So science, energy, and psychedelics. So as Kate said, I'm Justin, Navy, registered nurse, certified psychedelic guide, transformative nurse coaching and training, and loving partner to Tori Clark. And friend to many of you who are here. Disclaimer, what I am not. I'm not a doctor or scientist, and all the information in this presentation is derived from books, documentaries, self-experience, the internet. So there's that. And I do not support illegal drugs, so let's have some fun. In this presentation, I will attempt to bring awareness to what humans are, as I talked about before, what we are aware of and why, what roles do psychedelics have in human awareness, and hopefully you will leave with more questions than answers. So I'm going to do a spoiler alert because this talk can go many different directions, and at some point you're going to be like, what does any of this have to do with any of it? So I'm going to give you a little roadmap so you can kind of know where we're going before we get into the nitty gritty. So we're going to go in 3 parts. So part 1 is what are you? So the gist of this is you are not your body. The essence of what you call you is not limited to just your body. This universe, including you and everything in it, is made of energy that arises from a unified field. We do not know what energy is or where it comes from. We do know that it cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. Part 2, what are you aware of and why? Why are we humans not aware of this energy field that is all around us? We are made of it. We are swimming in it, yet we are unaware of it. Do our limited 5 senses make us deaf, dumb, and blind to the nature of true reality that is all around us? Part 3, what roles do psychedelics and other altered states I do want to be clear that psychedelics are not the only way to enter altered states to access these. But the landscape of the psychedelic experience is vast and ranges from just an altered sense of perception all the way to the mystical experience. And for this presentation, I want to focus specifically on the mystical experience for various reasons, which we will discuss later in this talk. The mystical experience can occur spontaneously, naturally, or by way of psychedelic compounds. Interestingly, history is littered with mystics that have influenced religion and philosophy. And how is the scientific definition of the mystical experience similar to the definition of the pure, unified field of energy? And overall, the main question I have is, are you having a mystical experience or seeing reality truly as it is? And part 4 of core question time. So with that, due to the volume of this and the speed that we're going to be moving at with our time constraints, I think it's best to keep questions at the end. So let's get on with it. So part 1, what are you? Let's take a journey into the human body. If you dissect the body layer by layer, tissue by tissue, organ by organ, farther enough, you will end up at human cells. And there are a variety of human cells. Stem cells, as you can see in that picture, branch out, make nerve cells, bone cells, skin cells, fat cells. According to some scientists, every cell in your body is replaced every 7 to 10 years. If every cell in your body is being replaced every 7 to 10 years, you are not your body. You may remember having the body of a 10-year-old, being 10 years old, but you do not have that same body. But there's still a you in that body. If you are not your body, what are you? So every cell in your body is comprised of molecules. On a molecular level, you are mostly a mix of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen molecules, and then a few other little very small, you can see the percentages of them up there. And if you stop and think about this for a moment, science is telling us that all of your hopes, thoughts, dreams, your awareness of who you are is coming from 4 molecules arranged in different ways. And yet I've seen many people die. These molecules are still here, they are gone. So there's something that we are missing that is not just these molecules. That is what you are. Inside molecules, we find atoms. Pretty simple, a molecule is made up of many atoms. Fun fact, the word atomos is Greek. It stands for uncuttable. The Greeks thought there was nothing smaller than the atom. How they even knew that there was atoms, I have no idea. But they were wrong about what they thought back then. Could we be wrong about what we think today? Inside the atom, we find electrons, neutrons, and protons. And then we're getting a little smaller. Inside protons and neutrons, we find quarks. Every proton, neutron has various degrees of angles of quarks. We're not going to get into that, not important. But if we explore beyond quarks, we find ourselves in cosmic foam. And if you're asking yourself right now, what the fuck is cosmic foam? That's what I said too. So, great question. I'm glad you asked. What the fuck is cosmic foam? So, here's your definition of cosmic foam from a particle physicist. Existing in a realm of what we lay people would consider empty space, tiny subatomic particles of matter are winking in and out of existence at extremely fast speeds, similar to bits of data flashing on your television screen. So if you think of your body at a very small, or any form of matter, this wall, this building, at a very small layer, aspects of matter are popping in and out of existence. This whole thing is flashing. You are flashing in and out of existence, on and off, on a very small scale. This also means that empty space is full of energy. So hold on to that thought. So quantum foam continued. According to the particle physicist David Bohm, every cubic centimeter of empty space contains more energy than the total energy of all matter in the known universe. So let that sink in for a second. Empty space contains more energy than all energy in all matter in the universe. Empty space and matter-filled space are both full of energy. Quantum foam continued a little more. If quantum foam particles are winking in and out of existence, where are they coming from and where are they returning to? This question brings us to the unified field theory, Albert Einstein's unified field theory. Beyond all forms of matter lies a singular unified field of non-matter. So let that sink in for a second. All matter is created by something, a substance that is non-matter. And the physicists and the mystics are both agreeing you can think of the unified field as being similar to the ocean, where all other fields of matter are like waves that arise out of the field, or out of the ocean, out of the field. And if you think of the ocean and waves, waves never stop being part of the ocean, just like matter never stops being part of the field. Fun fact, matter is the Latin word for mother. And I like to think of the unified field as the womb of all creation. Possibly the Virgin Mother, according to some. So here you have a kind of complicated idea of the unified field. So on the bottom, you have the unified field. You see it branching out, outside or beyond or coming from the unified field. You have Bose fields, force fields, gravitational fields, electroweak unification, magnetism. And on the right, you see branching out, you have leptons and quarks and turn into atoms, and you have quantum mechanics, and everything arising until we get to the point of, we have a computer sitting in front of me, all comes out of this field of something that we don't know what it is. But everything is made of a substance that is this field. So it's like a stem cell. I kind of think of the field as like a stem cell of the body. It can become anything. So more about the field. According to the science community, the unified field is everywhere. It is everything. All things material arise from it. So it is non-material, and yet all things that we consider material arise out of it. Physicist Niels Bohr states, everything that we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real. You want to let that sink in for a second. Nikola Tesla, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So question, what is the unified field made out of? Truly no one knows what the unified field is made out of, but it might be something similar to energy. I stop at energy or use energy because that's really the only thing that we have some degree of definition of, and I'll explore or dive into that a little more as to why that's kind of interesting to the unified field, but also why that's interesting to the psychedelic experience. So let's explore energy. What is energy? So according to Einstein, energy is matter, and matter is energy. E equals mc squared, and you can flip it. So matter is energy, and energy is matter. They are both one and the same. There is no difference. So if energy and matter are interchangeable, then this universe is energy. You are energy. Everything is energy, and that is according to our current understanding of science. As I said, this may change a couple hundred years from now, just as the atomos change, but right now, this is where we are. How does energy become matter? So according to Albert Einstein, we may regard matter as being constituted by the regions of space in which the unified field is extremely intense. So what he's saying is there is nothing but the field, like the ocean, and in a location where that field condenses down, you have matter. So I think of it in terms of the field as being more like a vapor, like water vapor, and matter being more like an ice cube. Both are H2O, but one is a condensed form of matter and one is a vapor that you cannot work with as well. How energy becomes matter continue. In other words, matter is a location in the unified field where the energy is extremely concentrated into a small space. So some analogies for this that you might want to think of, or may help, is like a knot in a rope or a wave on the ocean. So if you think of a knot in a rope, the knot is the rope. Just because we can point at the knot and call it a knot doesn't mean it stopped being a part of the rope. It still is the rope, just turned and condensed into that knot. A wave is still the ocean, it's just changing forms and curling back on itself. So, just like the knot is still the rope and the wave is still the ocean, you are energy. Did you ever stop being energy? Some fun thoughts to ponder about energy. Energy is defined as the force required to move an object. So we know that energy is a force required to accomplish work, but we do not know what that force is made out of. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. This suggests that nothing made it. It has always been, and it will always be. This also suggests that energy is eternal and is outside of time and space. And energy is the main ingredient of all things. Everything is made of it. Do we have any proof of this? So then we dive into atomic energy. So atomic energy is also referred to as nuclear energy. It is the release of energy stored in the nucleus or core of an atom. Remember, humans, everything made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms, and atoms are made of energy. So, Exhibit A, nuclear bombs. On your left is, I believe, the fat boy from World War II dropped on Hiroshima. That is a representation or an example or proof of an extremely fast release of atomic energy. I won't go into how that works, but you get the gist of it. That's just atoms releasing energy. That white light that you can see from miles away, leaving the destructive path, is just energy being released from atoms. More proof, nuclear power plants. That is a slow release of atomic energy. The atoms are the electrons are moving, and when they move, they release energy stored in their position. That can power an entire city. This one I found extremely interesting. More proof that matter is made out of energy. Recently in the Hadron Collider, they took two electrons. They didn't smash the electrons together, but they whizzed them past each other. The energy field around the electrons hit each other. When those energy fields hit each other, the energy of the fields created microparticles of matter that we had no names for, and they were not stable enough to remain in existence, so they popped into existence. They were here for microseconds, and they left. Made of energy, came together, and they left. Where did they come from? Where did they go? Okay, so part one we're done with. Recap. So real quick, you are not your body. According to some scientists, every cell in your body dies and is replaced every 7 to 10 years. Everything matter arises from a non-material, unified field of energy. Everything, including you, is made of energy. We do not know what energy is. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, therefore it is eternal and outside of time and space. The energy that makes the wall, your body, this building, the universe, the planet, it's all the same energy, as far as we know. There's no this energy for that energy, it's all the same. Which kind of says that we all come from one source of energy arising from a unified field. Moving into, fun fact first. Thoughts are energy. It's kind of an odd one to think of. All right, moving into part two. What are humans aware of and why? Why are we not aware of this energy field? So analogy-wise, why are you not aware of the world around you as pure energy? If an ice cube could talk to a fish about water, what would they say to each other? So an ice cube, have you ever heard of water, and a fish, we've all heard your statement asking the fish to think about water. And they don't even know they're swimming in water, right? They would, just like we are completely unaware of the substance that we are made out of and swimming in. We are made out of energy, walking around in energy, the energy is all around us. We are totally unaware of it and swimming in it. Why is this? You are not aware of this energy field, simply put, because you are an egoic mind operating inside of a body with limited senses. So let's dive into that. Alan Watts, which I'm sure you are all familiar with, you are a skin-encapsulated ego. Aldous Huxley, also, I'm sure you're familiar with him. The mind is a reducing valve necessary to make biological survival possible. So what that's basically saying is if we were taking in all the information that we could hear everything, see everything, we would not be able to survive. It would be information overload. So what is the mind? Let's get cut off a little bit there, but how is the mind a reducing valve? What is our mind, our system filtering out? So let's go by the five senses. Go by visual. This is interesting. The human visual capabilities are very limited, allowing us to see a very small sliver of reality existing all around us. The human eye can detect only 0.0035, that's not even 1%, of the full range of electromagnetic wavelength spectrum. We are nearly blind to the world around us. This is interesting. Butterflies, reindeer, some birds, bees, sometimes salmon, hedgehogs, possibly cats and dogs can see ultraviolet light. So if you look to your left, you have a bird in regular vision and in bird vision. That flower is under UV light. That's what some insects probably see when they're looking at it. It looks pretty psychedelic to me. I don't know. And on the right, you have human vision of a flower, bee vision, and butterfly vision. The clarity's not great, but they're pretty different. Compared to other animals, our ability to taste and smell is pretty small. So deer are able to smell 9 times better than humans. Dogs, 20 times. Elk, 1,000 times. And bear, 2,100 times better than humans. Hide your food when you're camping. Smell it. Compared to other animals, our ability to detect sound vibrations are very limited. So you can see in this whole chart up in the top to the left, you have our human auditory field. To the left, elephants and moles strictly go off of vibrations. Elephants can communicate with each other 10 miles away. They can triangulate animals 10 miles away because they have the 4 feet on the ground. Cats and dogs, we all know, have a huge range. Bats and dolphins, the military uses dolphins to find swimmers purely off of their sonar. We can't do any of that without special equipment. We are nearly deaf to the world around us. Fun fact, when you do hear a sound, back to molecules, a sound is strictly just vibrating molecules that are hitting your ear. So part 2, recap. Humans are made of and swimming in energy, yet we are totally unaware of it. You are a skin-encapsulated ego. Your brain is a reducing valve necessary to make biological survival possible, so we are limiting what we are taking in information-wise. 95% of the known universe is invisible to humans. The very limited senses, 5 senses, of the human biological computer greatly reduce input sensory from the world all around us in order to make survival possible. And humans, as I said, are essentially deaf, dumb, and blind to the true nature of the world of energy all around us. Moving into the fun part. We all doing good? Yeah? Okay. Okay. William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite and connected. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. So, I mean, you're looking at 2, 3, 4, a few hundred years ago, and they were talking about the same thing. And I don't know if they had much in the way of psychedelics back then, but Do psychedelic experiences allow the humans to experience the world around them as it is, infinite and connected, as William Blake suggests? So what you have here, I'll leave this up for a little bit. It's a psychedelic experience mat or gauge. On your bottom, you have color-coded to different medicines. So you have LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine. And then you can kind of see all the different experiences. You have perception to the left, variations, complex imagery, audio, visual, synesthesia, changed meaning of objects. You can see how the different medicines change those. Moving to the right, you have self-disintegration, disembodiment, definitely more prevalent with ketamine. Impaired control and cognition, looks like all of them kind of have that. Anxiety, which I assume would probably arise out of a disembodied experience if you were not ready to feel that. Blissful state, looks like MDMA is top of the chart on that one. Oceanic boundlessness on the bottom, this is my favorite. I think this best describes the mystical experience. Insightfulness, experience of unity, the spiritual experience. Anybody want me to leave this up for a little bit longer? Anybody grasp that pretty well? Okay. So moving on, the psychedelic experience scale, this kind of just covers the last thing. But I do want to say, I'm not just focusing on the mystical experience, I think all of it is important. The small little psycholytic states of just having those little things that pop into your mind to help you change your direction of life, those are also extremely important. So as you know, the landscape of the psychedelic experience is vast and ranges from perceptual changes such as auditory, visual imagery, synesthesia, so tasting colors, changed meaning of mental concepts, self-disintegration, disembodiment, impaired control, cognition, anxiety, oceanic boundlessness, insightfulness, unity, experience, spiritual experience, and blissful state. So for this presentation, I want to focus on the mystical experience, and I'm going to explain why. While all forms of psychedelic experiences are important and worthwhile for healing, for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the mystical experience for the following reasons. One, the parameters of the mystical experience are scientifically defined by the use of the mystical experience questionnaire. And this goes back to a book, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it was written in the 1900s. It had nothing to do with psychedelics, but it had to do with religious mystical experiences. And they teased it apart and made a list of this is what your mystical experience, defining characteristics of. And then they applied that to psychedelics later on in the last century. The scientifically defined parameters of the mystical experience coincide, in my opinion, we'll find out tonight, with the scientifically defined parameters of the unified field of energy. 3, in addition to being induced by psychedelic compounds, mystical experiences can occur naturally or spontaneously. I found this important because we're not just talking about peyote or DMT experiences, we're talking about stuff that goes all the way back to Christian mystics and before that were having these experiences that are nearly identical, if not identical, to the experiences that are described in psychedelics. Naturally occurring mystical experiences are well documented throughout history in various religious and philosophical contexts. And naturally occurring mystical experiences appear to be identical in nature to psychedelically induced mystical experiences as evidenced by the Mystical Experience Questionnaire. So, this is a synopsis of your mystical experience breakdown. These are the defining characteristics. So on your left, you have unity experience. So as you dissolve or start getting to the edge of reality, you may start to experience eternity, infinity. You begin to experience yourself outside of time. You may experience yourself as one with all surroundings. You may experience yourself as a fusion of the personal self into a larger whole. So you lose your name, you lose yourself, you lose your job, your role, and you merge into this greater, bigger, unified field, essentially. Unity with the ultimate reality, which no one really knows what that is. Awareness of the living presence in all things. Moving on to transcendence of time and space. So, like I said, losing sense of time and space. And if you look at energy, it's outside of time and space. Sense of being outside of time, beyond past, beyond future. The experience of timelessness and eternity. Moving on to ineffability. Many people, you ask them what that experience was, I'm sure many of you have many experiences you can't really describe to people that have not had these experiences. Positive mood, amazement, awe, tenderness, gentleness, peace, tranquility, ecstasy, joy. All right. So let's put these side by side. So on your left, I summarized not the entire aspect of the mystical experience, because I just had it up, but also I just wanted to focus on more the objective aspects that seem to coincide quite well with the unified field of energy. So starting with the unity, all things are one. If you look over on the right, all things, according to science, all things come from one source of energy. Oneness with all surroundings. Everything is made out of energy. You can become one with that source. Awareness of the living presence in all things. Some people have described seeing rocks as being alive, dirt as being alive, inanimate objects as being alive because they're vibrating with an energy field. And everything is alive with vibrating energy according to the scientific perspective. So moving down into transcendence of time and space. I feel that this transcribes over pretty easily. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It is eternal. It is outside of time and space. Nothing made it. It has always been, and according to science, it always will be. Ineffability, the sense that the experience cannot be described. And frankly, we can't even describe what energy is. We have some idea about it, but we can use it to a degree, we can plug it in, we can run things on it, but we don't know what it is. And to go further beyond that, we don't know what the unified field of energy is from which energy comes out of. Mystical experiences can occur naturally or be induced by psychedelic compounds. So I found this to be important. So personal encounters with the mystical have been documented for millennia, probably back to prior to man being able to speak. Mystical experiences are integral to the development of religious and spiritual beliefs and have had a major influence in shaping human culture. Mystical experiences often occur unexpectedly and in the absence of psychedelic compounds or physical illnesses. If you read back into some of the Christian mystics, Teresa of Avila or Eckhart Meister, there was no psychedelics there, but they were definitely having mystical experiences. Mystical experiences have also been described after ingestion of classical psychedelic medicines, and spontaneously occurring mystical experiences, by definition, by the mystical experience questionnaire and defining characteristics, are identical in nature to the mystical experiences induced by psychedelic compounds. Naturally occurring and psychedelically induced mystical experiences appear to be exactly the same thing. So to wrap this up in the direction, here's just a few. I mean, I could have put pages upon pages upon pages. I tried to leave some of the religious characters out of there, such as Christ and Buddha and some of those, because those can get a little bit treacherous, but here's just a few. And I also wanted to say there should probably be a lot more women up there, but they were probably burned at the stake. So, but there's just a few. Eckhart Tolle, I wanted to throw a shout out to him as one of our more recent mystics of our time, if you ever get into him. So part 3 recap. The range of psychedelic experiences is vast, includes the mystical experience. The mystical experience is well studied by science with a well-defined scientific parameters that well coincide with the scientific parameters of the unified field. The mystical experience is well documented throughout human history and has influenced various religious philosophical contexts. The mystical experience can occur naturally or be induced by psychedelic compounds and appear identical in nature. And as you saw, history is littered with mystics, whether they were natural or psychedelically induced. Total recap, you are not your body. You are constantly dying and being reborn, molecule by molecule, cell by cell, decade by decade. All matter, including you and this entire universe, is made out of energy. We do not know what energy is, but we do postulate that it is eternal and outside of time and space. Which begs the question, if you're made of energy and energy is eternal, are you not eternal? Is the universe not eternal? All energy arises out of a unified field. We do not know what the unified field is, we cannot explain it. The limited senses of the human biological apparatus diminish our awareness capabilities, making us deaf, dumb, and blind to the true nature of reality of the universe all around us. Psychedelic-induced mystical experiences state appear to be identical to naturally occurring mystical states. And the defining characteristics of the mystical experience and the unified field appear to be identical. Total recap, upper left, do you see a wave or an ocean, or do you see both? When did the wave stop being the ocean? On the right, do you see a knot or a rope or both? When did the knot stop being the rope? And on the bottom left, the universe, everything that you know and love that's in it, when did the universe stop being energy? Do you see the universe, or do you see energy, or do you see both? And this is my favorite statement. Mystics would say the reason why the unified field has eluded the grasp of Einstein and the others is that it is not outside or beyond, not some other force, but consciousness itself. They don't see it because they are inside of it. We don't see it because we are inside of it, we are made of it. And Tat Sam Asi, thou art that. Sanskrit for thou art that. The Hindu have been speaking of this for a long, long time. So question, are you having a psychedelic experience, or are you seeing the world as it is, infinite and connected? There's a few books if you are interested in diving into this a little bit. And that's it. If you have questions, we can try. I probably don't have the answers to them. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. Can you go back 2 slides? Yeah, you can go back all the way to the beginning if you want.
Thank you.
Kate, is this talk going to be up on the slide channel?
If it's okay with Justin, I'll put it on our YouTube and put a link to the Slack and on the newsletter. Yeah.
Really?
Do you have any questions for Justin?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we allowed to talk about psychedelic experience?
I think so, yeah.
One thing that I find really interesting is that during my experience, I felt like in a space that was so vast.
Yeah.
And when I was coming back into this realm, it felt so dense, and it helps me kind of understand that through your side show. I mean, the feeling
great.
was, it was incredible.
Yeah. I think our consciousness is not just bound to this. I think we can expand out and experience everything all at once.
Yeah, I just really remember that vividly feeling that.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
First of all, thank you for that
Oh, thank you.
Kind of a random question.
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old, and like just seeing his perception of the world, just like without the blinders on and everything. I'm fairly new to the area here, and been involved, raised strictly Catholic, and then got involved in Santa Dime and various other experiences, and I've been like searching for the right place. Like me and my little guy, we go on hikes and play music together and stuff. But like, I was just wondering if you or anyone in this room kind of had any recommendations with someone that age, like how to start. Besides just the two of us, I just really value ritual and community and stuff.
I have no idea. Anybody have any, like, you're looking for a place to go for him to, like,
Yeah,
more
place-
specific question? Like,
If you want a good spiritual location, is the Reno Buddhist Center. If you like that, young kids go there, and it's a wonderful place for a family like yours.
Awesome. Yeah, we've tried a few churches and stuff, and didn't quite hit the mark. So.
I mean, from just my experience, like just ask them questions and give them an opportunity to come. If a question is too hard, give them options to choose from. It gives them an opportunity to work that executive functioning. But specifically questions, where does the bark come from on trees, right? If we lift this leaf up, what do you think is going to be under it? And then just maintaining that childlike sense of wonder that we all find on psychedelics, and don't. Somebody just said blinders, right? How as a father do you maintain like taking down those blinders for them and these experiences that you have with your children, and just having ask them questions about nature to maintain that sense of wonder.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you.
I'm interested in the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics. I was listening to Dr. Peter Attia and his podcast called The Drive, and they were talking about ketamine, but I've also heard psilocybin and other MDMA and the incredible benefits to therapies where traditional therapies just aren't effective. Have you had any?
I work at a ketamine clinic.
Do you?
I've heard a lot of testimonials from my patients that are pretty rich. Yeah, I think the general across the board with these psychedelics is they start diminishing the control of the ego and your protective nature, so that you can start getting into a little deeper of the seed or the core of that thing that has sprouts or issues around, right? So I think therapy is like, it's helpful, but if you go around painting the leaves green and you never start watering the roots, right? So I think psychedelics can get down into the root of yourself.
Yeah, I've heard this analogy that of course, brain is just a bunch of neural networks, and we have these entrenched pathways, and that psychedelics tend to help loosen some of those
Definitely.
well-worn mental pathways that we go down.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can look at an MRI image of a brain on LSD and see most of it is lit up, which is why I think you get synesthesia. You get different parts of the brain cross-talking, tasting purple.
Exactly. Yeah, that's part of the experience you're having is you're lighting up different areas that you're just not used to, because the brain, just like every other organ, is trying to maximize efficiency, and so you go down the same path you always go down.
Exactly.
I've got a question. What inspired you to become like a psychedelic counselor?
I think part of it was my raising. Part of it was my father raising me in an Eastern philosophical context. Some of it life experiences. A lot of it life experiences.
What does that entail? What does the education entail in terms of you, the being able to provide a service to?
Being that we're being recorded and I have a professional license, I don't know how much I can go into my
Yeah.
personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd
But-
be-
You have a professional license?
What's that?
I'd be happy to
The
talk
CERT,
to
the
you about that.
CIS.
Well, yeah, we did have the CIS, yeah, the
That's
California
what it's
Institute of
talking
Integral Studies. So
Yeah.
in 2017, my wife and I went and attended his course taught by Stan Groff, Bill Richards, a bunch of the older folks that were around way back in the 50s and 60s. So we have a lot of that knowledge. But you can only go so far with a book. I mean, you can read these books all day long if you want. Yeah.
When it came to my own experience, it was just researching. I have a minor in substance abuse addictions treatment, so it was researching further and further, like going from a molecule to an atom, like what is actually happening in the brain when a person has an addiction. And then it's like, okay, well, these molecules have the same shape as these molecules, and if you take experiences from over time, these mystical experiences that help people regenerate their ego are the same experiences that we have from these entheogenic substances. And it's like when we have treatment facilities that are on moral models, they block out a lot of the knowledge that comes from these substances and say you can't do them. My big thing was like, well, why can't we? And what is the similarities between these mystical experiences that people are supposed to have to release them from addictions, and can we expedite them with chemicals that look the same and make the same outcomes more quickly, specifically acid and psilocybin. And when I realized that there was more information in that area with psychedelics and how we can see what the brain is doing on these different kinds of substances, I realized that the moral model of just not doing this and not understanding your brain, not understanding the why of the addictions was so wrong. So, it's about education and assimilation and bringing everybody together because we all have the same problems. Yours isn't different because you're that.
Thank you. Oh.
You had a slide on there that said thoughts were energy.
Yeah.
And,
You want to go back up?
Sure. Yeah. I'm not particularly religious, but I was raised in a church where a lot of people believe in the power of prayer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I've developed in my spiritual self, I've messed around with manifestation and visualization. And I'm curious if there's any research that's been done about those things as they relate to each other, and also actually creating change in the physical world from what your thoughts begin.
Research that would be scientifically proven and accepted, probably not, because we're.
Joe Dispenza has a lot of studies
Yeah?
on that topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're right, because there are.
Supernatural.
Yeah, they would put
Yeah.
things in a box and
Yeah,
meditate
he's
on
done
them.
like thousands of MRIs on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a little bit fringe, but at the same time, I mean, the mystics are saying that we are living inside of the mind of God. So, if you're thinking it, and you are part of the one field of energy, that it's going out to something and affecting something. That would be my answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you aware of any current or recent medical or scientific studies into psychedelics as far as being used in a therapeutic setting? Just
yeah.
any studies going on. Like, well, what's one that interests you?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to pull anything straight out of my hat. I mean, documentaries that are fascinating. If you just go to Johns Hopkins has an entire research center that's strictly psychedelic research center. I mean, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, UCSF, they're all, UC Berkeley is now training psychedelic guides. So, I mean, I can't pick one particular study per se. I'm looking, PTSD in the vets. Yeah, MDMA in the vets. That one's definitely close to my heart. Seeing that work as well as it does, as fast as it does, especially with my own experiences and being a war vet and having my experiences. I mean, it's basically saved my life, I would say. And, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. I think there's.
Yeah, give me a couple.
Okay, I mean, if you just go
Areas
John
where-
Hopkins psychedelic, you're gonna peer-reviewed articles out the wazoo.
So that's to say no one's practicing at present, it's not?
You mean like an above-ground therapy with an illegal substance?
Like walk in here on Southbridge in Midtown.
Yeah.
Treatment.
Unfortunately, no. Like, yeah.
Ketamine clinic.
I mean, I'm sure there
Drop
are.
in, drop out,
Yeah.
eventually.
Ketamine clinics though.
Ketamine
Yeah.
clinics for sure, but they're not. I mean, unless you bring in a therapist, your own therapist, that they're not doing so. But that's your closest option at the moment.
What
But
is
Costa-
ketamine? I'm just hearing this like.
What is
veterinarian.
What is ketamine?
Yeah.
Yeah, ketamine is the analog to PCP. I can't pronounce phenol
Right.
something
I got you.
But the history of that, PCP was created in the 70s for Vietnam, for anesthesia. Ketamine came from that. In the 90s, I think they started realizing the benefits to depression, OCD, chronic pain, and probably a slew of other things. And now they have clinics where you can do IM, IV. Johnson & Johnson patented an isomer of ketamine so that insurance companies would cover it. That's a different conversation, but because ketamine's like extremely cheap, but Spravato is like $1,000. So anyway, but it works really well. So neat.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying just this little history there.
I also believe that in Oregon they're going to start
Yes.
above ground therapy
Yes.
in January
In January? Yeah, correct.
with psilocybin, I think.
I believe so.
It was legalized for therapeutic
Mhm.
use, but it's been a 2-year period.
I think they're doing the trainings, right? They have to like do the trainings and get all the licenses and.
120-hour trainings, but it's been kind of a challenge for them to get it worked out, but, and then Colorado just
Oh, yeah.
legalized it for therapeutic use, but
Okay.
that isn't, and that's a process getting going too.
It's legalized in Colorado for therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also shout out Synthesis Institute, based in the Netherlands, have been doing psilocybin truffle work with people for a very long time, and they bought a property in Oregon, and
Oh.
they bought it like a year or
Wow.
maybe a half ago, so they're working on it. And you can give them your email, and it'll tell you when it's time.
Wow.
What is their name?
Synthesis Institute.
I also got an email from MAPS yesterday saying their last study for the phase 3 FDA clinical trial for MDMA assisted therapy is finished,
Okay, cool.
and now it just needs to go.
The results have to come out and
Yeah, well, it's,
deschedule it and reschedule it.
yeah, it's gonna be
Make an isomer that the insurance companies will cover. And,
MDMA on your insurance.
yeah.
It's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Just in general, like, as far as like literature, or, like the current state of things, I know a lot of it comes down to legality, but
Yeah.
for treating different types of situations like depression or anxiety or PTSD and stuff, and there's all these different psychedelics. Like I've had bandmates who really benefited, struggling with heroin addiction,
Ibogaine, yeah.
1998.
Mhm.
But like, is that like kind of, I don't know if you can confirm that, but like these different substances, depending on what your symptoms are, will have better benefit, or is it just
Yeah.
kind of once you enter that space, it doesn't really matter as much?
That's a little bit of it too, I think. But I mean, MDMA works differently than psilocybin. Psilocybin and LSD work pretty similar to each other. Ibogaine works way different than any of the other ones. And then there's probably a whole slew that Sasha Shulgin of different compounds that are made that we'll probably start seeing those come out as technology gets further down the rabbit hole. But yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
I have a question.
How are you able, or how do you combine energies with other people that you're on an experience with, so that you guys can have shared energy and interconnect with one another? Do you have any mantras or meditations?
Oh, that's a really
or things
interesting
that
question.
you enjoy doing?
How do we pair that question? You're saying share your energy with somebody else, like you're in a psychedelic state?
Yeah, whether
or
it's
just
meditative or
like in a
psychedelic.
car driving to like.
Preferably not while driving, but maybe.
But
but yeah.
so like in a
meditate-
full-on psychedelic meditative drop-in
Either-
state?
Yeah.
I think that takes time.
Is
They
that
take,
something-
you want a facilitator to hold space.
Gotcha.
That's probably one of your biggest.
Okay.
And are those two people compatible?
Right.
Are their energies compatible?
Okay.
Yeah, and journey together multiple times?
I just think it'd be wonderful, like with my partner, to be able to continue to build our
Absolutely.
energies together.
Have you looked into transcendental meditation?
Yes.
Yeah.
But not together.
Oh, well,
So yeah.
why not?
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, the transcendental state is the same. In that book, The Unbound Ocean of Consciousness, actually, has nothing to do with psychedelics, but has everything to do with the unified field and I don't know where that is now. And everything to do with transcendental meditation.
Okay.
So that's fascinating.
You know, I like what you said about having somebody that you've journeyed with a couple of times. There's somebody in this room I just had a shared experience with. Actually, it was really crazy. And time traveled to an experience a number of years ago. And I felt being there with him. And we were able to share memories together and everything. So I think it really, Justin says, that just, you have to do it a couple of times.
Yeah,
And sometimes it just clicks. Very cool. It's crazy.
Can you speak to how the brain, where the brain goes? Because I felt really a strong dream the other night. In my father's presence, and actually my mom and my brothers, but I think it left me with my dad's energy the next day. And I have been putting binaural.
Binaural beats?
Yeah, at night with different ones, different frequencies for different.
So your question is, can I speak to where the brain goes?
I mean, yeah. Well,
No.
Where the?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody can. I mean, we can do an fMRI imaging and say this area of the brain is lighting up. But what is
how the neural beats might
not a clue.
affect the dream?
Probably a trance state. Putting you into a trance state would be my guess.
Yeah, it was just different.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Try sound bad.
If somebody was like starting their journey into psychedelics, which one would you recommend towards the beginning?
Technically, I'm not going to recommend anything because they're illegal. So, technically, I'm not. What I would recommend is going to a country where they are legal, and there is a complete center that's well reviewed and well rated, and it's safe. Probably your best bet. I mean, you can look at the studies and see what your outcomes are. A lot of them are saying that MDMA is probably your place to start in a country where it is legal, say, because it's going to be your heart opener. You're going to get into the trust aspect. Getting to know yourself and having a relationship with yourself, I think, is paramount before you
Smash the ego.
Before you smash the ego. Before you go journeying into what is God consciousness, like what are you consciousness? Like what are, if you start getting into destroying yourself and then you don't have an anchor to come back to, a solid foundation to come back to, that can get I don't know about dangerous if that's the right word, but maybe that is the right word. If you're not real stable here, to go blasting out there might be not advantageous.
If someone were, wanting to better understand this, short of going to another country, I know that there are psychedelic facilitators who help people with these journeys and whatnot. How do people, is there a resource for them? Not saying you're recommending that, but I mean, how do people go about that?
Okay, so what's your...
I guess, how do people do this in an intentional way without necessarily just running down and finding, some MDMA somewhere randomly?
I'm not going to plug, it's hard not to plug ketamine. Because ketamine is such a nice, and Taylor, you got some experiences. I mean, it's a 1 hour experience. You're there with doctors, totally safe. There's science behind it. It's legal. So, I mean, that might be your place to start if you're looking to get into it. Taylor, did you have something to...
Yeah, or finding like a supportive community such as an integration circle with people who have more experience than you. You can bring questions, you can get advice or get feedback. We have an integration circle in this room every Wednesday night.
Great.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, the studies that I've heard on that podcast, I think it's like only 4 or 5 podcasts old on, again, Dr. Peter Attia, The Drive, is on ketamine, and I think that the efficacy was 50% of the participants saw almost immediate results, and these were severely depressed patients who were responsive
treatment
to
resistant.
medication.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been working on it for 2 weeks, and I wouldn't say a naysayer, but I was a little bit, I'm not too sure about this, but I've been completely blown away by the people in their stories. And they're just your everyday, conservative, Wrangler jean wearing, 60, 70, 80 years old. There's nothing, there's a couple psychonauts, but they're just your normal people. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So sorry, so you said you have an intervention circle on Wednesday nights?
Yeah, 5:30 to 7 every Wednesday.
5:30, I'm sorry.
5:30 to 7 on
Every Wednesday,
Wednesday. And I was just gonna add, I didn't mean to cut you off, I was gonna add to that this coming Wednesday, which is the 4th Wednesday, it's actually a peer support for addiction circle. And to disclaimer that it's not medical or medical advice, we're not psychotherapists or offering substance abuse counseling. But on that note, it's also not specifically geared toward substance abuse. I would assume everybody in the room probably has experienced something kind of having a hook on you, and the classic psychedelics, particularly psilocybin and LSD, can be very, very helpful with things of a compulsive nature. And so whether it's technology or shopping or substances or intrusive thoughts or anything that feels like kind of compulsive, the spirit of the group is to be sort of mindfulness based and to support each other to repattern. So just wanted to let you know that's different than our standard integration circles. And then the second Wednesday of the month is a symbols and meaning group that is modeled after Jungian dream work coaching. So that's the second, and then the third Wednesday of the month, which is a standard, is Taylor and Kwan are facilitating. And so this month we have 5 Wednesdays, so we'll probably just have a standard integration circle on the 5th Wednesday, but we invite you to come, it'll be in this room.
So it's every single Wednesday, there's
Every-
different variations of integration work we do together.
And what time was it at?
5:30 to 7. Mhm.
We have tea lounge afterward, like we did tonight.
Yeah, this space is open all night for people to hang out and get drinks, keep
Great.
talking.
Yeah, I didn't want to divert from the questions,
That's
but
perfect.
we're on topics.
It's all part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other burning questions?
I've got one more question.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. I don't completely understand it, but it seems like psychedelic assisted therapy is really helpful for people that have experienced trauma.
Oh yeah.
And I'm curious, like when you're performing psychedelic assisted therapy, is there like a core set of guidelines that you keep in mind to help others like lead into that experience?
Absolutely. Tori, do you want to speak to that? Are you very trained?
The training? Oh, it's tough. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't. There's the way we were trained is all I can speak to. It's not like therapy. Like you're going to see your therapist. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about this issue, that issue, that issue. It's more of you're on the mat. You're in the blindfold, either headphones or a speaker and a designed playlist to guide your experience. And we are there to be your witness and also to be your servant, essentially, and to keep your surroundings safe. I like to think of it in analogy terms. We humans, as animals, we have watchdogs in our brain, in our parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system. For instance, if you sleep in the backyard in a tent in your house, you're probably gonna do okay. You'll probably sleep pretty well. If you go out to the redwoods and go to sleep, every little noise, unless you're an avid backpacker, every little noise, you're gonna wonder if it's a bear, if it's a coyote, if it's a dog, or what, right? So you've got those little things that are wondering, is it safe here, right? So the sitters, their main purpose is to make it safe for you so that when you're going into an experience such as a complete dissolving into the ether and it feels like you're actually dying, because that's what the experience is. It feels like you are personally dying and you're not going to come back. It's really nice to have 2 people there and you know on some level that your body is being watched. You are alive and you can go. And if something comes up, we'll field it probably.
A lot of the work too is, so it's hard to answer, is you're doing a lot of the pre-sessions with people with trauma to get a relationship. It's all this work is about relationship. Have a relationship with your guide, have a relationship with yourself. So you're getting a relationship with your guides so they know your background, your trauma, so that there's that trust when you're going into the space. That's a big part of it. And in the studies, that's also what they're doing. You're doing this preset amount of sessions before you're actually on the mat. And then you're doing integration after your sessions with the number of sessions, 30 sessions after for integration.
Got it.
Before you do another round.
That makes sense. So people are kind of like de-armoring. And you're like,
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There was a question back here.
Oh, I was, just going to continue with what was being shared. I find it to be incredibly supportive to hold space for the pre-journey, post-journey. And when we can do that in a space that is pretty succinct with the journey itself. I have a little bit of a different lens that I do journeys with. I was in the shamanic medicine wheel for 3 years.
And what is that? Can you speak to that?
It's the shamanic medicine wheel where you walk the medicine wheel and you receive different rites of passage and initiations. And so I carry the psilocybin medicine for trauma. And what initiated me into that was my husband was a Marine Corps veteran. And he chose death by suicide in 2016. But it catapulted a phenomenal journey into not only my own healing experience, but being able to hold space for pretty catastrophic moments that our fellow travelers have gone through. So to have stumbled upon this community is epic. I feel like I can pick you all out of the crowd. But no, it's beautiful, and the conversation has been incredibly fulfilling. So
Thank you.
Yeah, so for one-off conversations around journeys with trauma, for maybe someone to
Beautiful.
share some wisdom.
Just kind of a follow-up to this. So the certificate that you guys got, CRIS, you're a therapist, right? Okay. And you are?
I'm a registered nurse.
Not therapist. So is there a distinction between guiding and actual PAT? Are distinctions being made? Because I have read about therapists, like couples therapists, having sessions with couples while they're in the MDMA state and that kind of thing. And that's kind of how I've been thinking of psychedelic assisted therapy. And now I'm wondering if I'm drawing too stark distinctions.
Tori, do you want to?
Well, they're wanting at least one licensed, I believe, and that was what, and then that distinction of that being more of a lead person.
Right. I mean, I'm
So,
sorry, I meant a little bit more about the process. Is the psychedelic assisted therapy, as I have been imagining it, is, the substance plus, I guess what we would call kind of more traditional therapy.
Sometimes people don't talk at all.
Yeah.
So
We're calling that psychedelic assisted therapy.
That's still, you're still having, and it would be, if you're, for instance, having experience and you're going internal and meeting your internal healer and you're doing your own internal work, it would be really rude of me to step in and say, hey, what's going on? Like, let's talk about it. Like, you're doing fine.
Right.
But if there is something that comes up, like, hey, I'm processing this or that, can we talk about it? Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
They're there for that. But it's not like a guide, like, we're going to do this.
Sure.
That's one of the hardest parts of going through these programs is that you realize like all of your training, it almost kind of gets dumped out the window.
All the
because
therapists I know said that.
it's so egoic coming from the Western model of medicine of like, I'm in charge and I have the answers for you. And that's BS if that all goes away. And so you're almost retrained when you go through it.
I was curious though if these journeys are coupled with traditional therapy, so that outside of the journey you can, sort of take some steps. I was curious. Some therapists couple the two.
Yeah, so you mean like doing therapy with
Having
somebody
traditional-
afterwards?
Like integrative therapy.
That's can be very helpful. I think it's most helpful if the therapist have had their own experiences.
Sure.
And that's where it can get kind of tricky.
Mm-hmm.
when you go to somebody that has never been there or done that.
Yeah.
And they're trying to help you. It can be a little.
Yeah, I think you definitely want a therapist who's
Yeah.
very a believer
Privy
in
to
the
it.
process. Yeah.
It's no different than a backcountry guide.
Yeah.
I want someone taking you to Montana that just came from LA. You're gonna get lost. Probably die.
Are there any programs you know of for people who aren't like a therapist or a registered nurse to be like someone that can do this or be
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
There are. We'll have to send it. We can send some to Kate. We have a couple friends that have gone
Yeah.
through a few.
Yeah.
And one of them that was quite reputable. It was nice,
Okay.
and you didn't have to have the whole background with licensure and that's and whatnot. Yeah.
And I swear I'm not a Kate Shell, but synthesis is also doing that.
Yeah.
And Rosalind Watts, who's based at the Imperial College, is also very recently launched. It's not guiding, but it's kind of more focused integration guiding. They were buried in applications, so all of it is going to take time. Training the trainers is the bottleneck that everyone's talking about right now, but they're out.
So just a question as like a guide or a therapist, like a few times I've been like just a sitter for someone who's either trying psychedelics the first time or working through some shit, and like, as she brought up, like holding the space is so crucial. But you also like when they're working through such deep stuff, like you kind of reach that like, at least in my experience, like that kind of psychic state where you're kind of there with them and helping them, but you're also like, I don't want to go too far here because I'm here to hold the space. Like, are there techniques to like stay grounded with that, and not go? Does that make sense? Kind of go
Yeah,
down.
it does. So, like
There's techniques. I think it's more of like a learning process of what you learn from your elders that are doing the work.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I did recently read, is it The Explorer's Guide to Psychedelics?
Oh, yeah.
Fadiman
Tim-
talks about that.
Does
It's
it?
a good read, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Explorers Guide to Psychedelics.
Yeah.
Okay.
consciousness medicine, I thought.
Oh. Fred Swamp was on.
I think having your own experiences is probably the best thing that's going to qualify a person to know where the other person is and how best to help them in their experience.
I think just the way that you were approaching it, thinking about it, the model of having somebody use a substance that would drop their ego so that then they could work with the therapist. That's the way I was perceiving what you were saying. And I mean, the way I see it is philosophically, some of the medicines really know what the body knows how to respond to the medicines. The medicines have their own kind of knowledge, and so we talk about ayahuasca and things like that. The spiritual belief is that these substances work with the body on a level that we don't understand, but that it we don't want to interfere with the process that's a natural process unless there's some kind of I would say anguish or emergency or something like that happens. But if they did come into the environment with an intention, that's a big part of it, is what's the intention before you take the medicine. You might work on that for a week or so, just like show me the truth, show me this or whatever, and then allow the medicine and allow the person's subconscious, if you want to, or whatever, the intentions then get worked on, however they're going to do it. And when I did my first journey, 2 years ago or whenever it was, just the fact that I was in that set and setting, the comfort level, and having the intentions, and just being able to relax into it and let whatever was going to happen happen. I had an extraordinary experience that didn't have anything to do with like major visions or anything coming into me, but my body had to work out all kinds of trauma and stuff like that, and it just did it on its own. And I thought I was like flailing all over the place, and
It's just a
the
solid
person
place.
sitting with me said, "You weren't moving. You weren't moving." And my body, I just was like, I thought I was just shaking like this, moving stuff. And
Moving energy?
That's
energy.
that was all the energy, and what a release of a lot of trauma, and that there was nothing in my brain saying anything, making any sense or whatever. It was just kind of letting it be. And so I think if the person sitting with me, the two people sitting, if either of them had kind of come in and interfered or tried to help me move towards anything, that probably would have really interrupted the process, or it would have taken it in a place where I wasn't meant to go.
Right.
So that's why I don't know when you do ketamine or MDMA, like today I showed this movie Shock and Awe, which is a really awesome movie to my students. And I wanted them to understand what veterans experienced coming back, and then how ayahuasca helped them like resolve a lot of their conflicts in a short period of time. But oh yeah, so one of the veterans ended up doing MDMA, but she worked with her therapist, and they did process. She was processing stuff in a way that she just wasn't by herself. She was being supported by this person that she trusted. And it's really interesting that it's very different, and all the substances are a little bit different. And but the power of it, that's what I wanted to show my students, was the power of these substances was amazing. But they didn't do it, they did it outdoors in a group, and there was no interaction with the individual during that time. So can I say something right now then too? Can I talk to them about it?
Yeah, we're gonna
Or not?
be mindful of the time, so this is a great time for you to do your community announcement,
Okay.
real quick, and then we're gonna close the talk so people can open the tea lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick, go ahead.
Well, so there's an organization called the Divine Assembly. It's out of Utah. Steve Urquhart was a state senator, and he's an attorney, and he was for the House of Representatives, I guess, for Utah. Anyway, he was a Mormon and had realized that he wanted to do more with psilocybins specifically, so he has created a federally recognized religious organization, and the sacrament is psilocybin. So it's a free membership. You can get a membership card if you want to, and in doing so, he has provided an opportunity for you to carry psilocybin as a sacrament and to use it as a sacrament. There are no restrictions, there's no rules, it's just, that is your divine sacrament. So if you're interested in that, just look up The Divine Assembly, TDA, and they want to, they already have a pretty good group going in the Salt Lake City area or that part of Utah, but they would love to have organizations start to develop nationally. And so I was just thinking that it fits perfectly with this kind of group. If that's something that you're interested in doing, just go ahead and look them up. The Divine Assembly.
The Divine Assembly.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. We would like to thank you for a wonderful, wonderful talk. Thank you all for being here. This is officially the largest group we've ever had at a meeting. And if you'd like to be on the newsletter, there's an email sign up by the door. We've mentioned the integration circles. We also have a book club that meets the second Monday of the month, and we're just starting a new book. It's Dr. Keith Lowenstein's Kriya Yoga for Self-Discovery, and he will be coming in the spring to do a workshop, so we're excited about that. And we may have a special surprise for December, but I'll wait until that's been confirmed. So, if anybody else would like to give a community announcement, feel free to throw it out. I wanted to let everyone know again that they have tea lounge tonight, so hang around and enjoy and continue discussing if you'd like. Yeah, somebody would like to share what's going on? John?
I just think there's a really cool mushroom exhibit happening at Patagonia Outlet tomorrow that I'm going to go to. Maybe there's just somebody out here that knows more.
A rumor that Walker is going to be there, yeah?
That is true, yes. It's at the Reno Patagonia Outlet from 2 to 4 p.m. I'm going to have a booth there just talking about mushrooms, selling gourmet mushrooms and tinctures, and I think they have some sort of like mushroom collection they're dropping. Not 100% sure on the details of that, but it's going to be a mushroom party at Patagonia.
Awesome, from 2 to 4. And that does remind me too, that tomorrow morning, for those of us that are doing the polar plunge and those of you that would like to experience that, 9 o'clock, we're joining with Sinjin's group over at Ambrose Park. You can type it in the Google. Walker's nonprofit Green Vibe has a community cleanup on, is it Sunday, the 20th?
Sunday, yeah.
Sunday morning
at
at 9 o'clock. And then there's a workshop a Wim Hof workshop, Leviticus McDonald, later in the day. And there are links on the website, psychedelic.org, where you can talk to Walker for more information.
You can just also follow, if you have Instagram, Green Vibe World. You can follow us for all of our cleanups and any like event, environmental stuff. So, yeah.
Anybody else?